Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to talk about some strategies and incentives to navigate all the recent legislation and what kind of impacts this is to biofuel blenders. I'm joined today with Benecor. We're both going to be focused on biofuel blenders because that's who we serve and who we work with. And so we're going to focus in on, obviously, there's been probably a lot of noise on your social media and probably a lot in your email inboxes about what's been going on, what EPA has been announcing, and all the recent legislation that's coming through, and how does that impact biofuel blenders. So I'm going to go through the blending benefits, what's still out there. Maybe it's time to kind of revisit what the incentives are in your state, federally, what might be available to you, just so you can kind of keep that in mind and keep working on that and keep thinking about how you could change things up. And then again, going to talk more about what's come out recently from EPA and how that impacts biofuel blenders. And then I'm going to hand it over to Benecor, and they're going to talk about some blending strategies and some of the equipment that they sell and that they produce to help your business. So I'm Ginger Laidlaw. I'm the Vice President of NATSO's Alternative Fuels Council, and NATSO represents truck stops across the U.S. And who I work with, All Fuels Council works with, are fuel marketers and biofuel blenders across the U.S. Whether it's transportation or heating oil, I'm helping all of those types of businesses, and we're just trying to find all the incentives, all the things we can do to help biofuel blending work to your advantage, whatever incentives are available. Maybe you're looking for supply, looking for what type of equipment to use. Maybe you're just getting started and you're figuring out how to get registered. We help with all that. We have an online RIN management tool as well, and we can also help with RIN marketing. So obviously, if you're a biofuel blender, you know what the benefits can be. It's been a rocky road since the beginning as to when things are working well economically and when they're not. And so it's always good to revisit. I feel like things have been kind of up and down with not knowing when the new administration comes in, we never kind of know what's going to happen exactly. So right now, I want to encourage you to look again at the numbers, look again at what supply options there are available to you, whether it's renewable diesel, which may be a new fuel for you, or biodiesel. And if you're a biofuel blender, you're a discretionary blender, so you can choose when you're going to blend and when it makes the most sense. So whether you are doing the blending or someone upstream of you is doing the blending, it's just good to know what the incentives are, what's available in your state, what's available federally, so you know when you're negotiating your supply contracts what the incentives are. And then obviously, if you're the one who's blending, you're in control of the quality of the fuel and what percentage you're blending at. So maybe your company has environmental sustainability governance goals, or you're trying to reduce your greenhouse gas emissions. Blending with biofuels and keeping track of that is going to help you, figure out and also sort of broadcast and market what a good thing you're doing, how much carbon reduction you're providing as a blender. And if you haven't heard of it already, there's a voluntary credit market that All Fuels Council is actually digging into a little bit right now as to how we can help our clients take advantage of that. But that would be outside of low carbon fuel standard states. So federally, renewable fuel standard, which gives us the RINs. And right now, in general, we're going upward, which is great. We love to see this, obviously. The beginning of the year, I feel like it was stalled out a little bit because there's a lot of unknowns. We didn't know what was going to happen with tax incentives, with the RINs. So in general, things kind of were stalled out, as you all know, if you're blenders, that maybe supply wasn't available. Just a lot of things happen at the beginning, but it's definitely moving upward trend, which we obviously love to see. So this is showing both biodiesel and ethanol RIN values over this year. So that's federally, RINs are available to whomever is blending. You can take on the RINs, or you cannot take on the RINs. That's discretionary, what you want to do. So if you were to look at closer deep down into your state incentives, and I'll tell you how you can get to that information here in a minute, but just kind of just taking an example, just looking at Illinois, they have a state incentive that if you're just to look at this year, that if you blend a B16, so 16% bio, or an RD16, if you blend at least that between April and November, you are getting your sales and use taxes are excluded. You're not subject to that. So this is for this year. Next year they're going to go up to B19 or RD19. So this is just one example, and this is Illinois of what could be available. So it's important to look at what your state incentives are if you're not aware or maybe forgot or had been kind of out of the blending game for a bit. It's good to take a look at this. And then if you're on the West Coast, you know all about the low carbon fuel standard. It started out in California and kind of has been a little, not a little bit of a pun intended, but carbon copied into Oregon and Washington. They have their own state incentives, and that's built upon a benchmark for the fossil fuels. If you are bringing in fossil fuels or creating fossil fuels, then you're creating a deficit. If you are bringing in biofuels, then you're creating a credit. If you have a deficit, you have to buy the credits to make up. So that's how that market works. A little different than RFS, but these can be layered. These can be layered with RINs. So if you are in these states, you can also still get RINs on top of the LCFS credits. I highlighted Oregon here because they kind of have an interesting situation right now where they had a pipeline that wasn't available or went down for a bit. So then shortly after that, a lot of diesel influx came into Oregon and kind of created a situation where there was more obligation than there were credits. So their credits right now, Oregon's credits right now, are actually worth about 3 times as much as California's. So interesting how things like that can happen. So some new states that are coming into this, New Mexico is coming into 2026, and just I'll put a plug in here that NATSO is having our Connect show is going to be in New Mexico actually in February. But they're coming on with their own state incentive program as well. There's lots of states, there's lots of regions that have been looking at these low carbon fuel standards for a while and keep introducing bills and keep trying for these types of programs. So they're definitely out there. They're definitely trying to create their own standards. Again, these are a layer, another incentive on top of RINs. So something to look at if you're in those states. And here is a link to what I was talking about earlier, all the state incentives, Alternative Fuels Data Center. We have a link to it on our website, natsoaltfuels.com, under resources. That will take you, and it actually divvies it out by state. Tax incentive, loans that might be available through your state. Many of you may have already participated or maybe have looked into the USDA's higher blend infrastructure program. That is kind of on pause for the moment. Maybe we'll hear more news towards the end of this year, but not likely for 25 as an option, but maybe 26. So we'll see on that one. That's a national funding to help pay for tanks and equipment for biofuel, the higher blends of biofuel. So another great tool to use on our website is the blending calculator, which you'll need to know what your diesel rack pricing and what a biofuel per gallon price is. And then if you need any of this information, including the RIN value, you can ask us for that, and we can share what the RIN value is for that day. And this is all historical stuff here. Might be sort of close to where things are at today, but this doesn't include freight and taxes and things like that. But this is something that you can get to on our website to just kind of look at. You can play with the blend percentage. You know, what is the advantage? Is there an advantage to me being the blender if I get all the tax credits and the incentives, the RINs, the LCFS credits, all those things? If I get those things, is it worth it for me to be the blender? So I think it's worth going back and taking a look at this to see, you know, is this a time where it's going to work for me again? It's going to be an economic advantage. So there's kind of 2 things going on here. I'm sure you've all heard about what's going on with the tax legislation. We all I shouldn't say we all, but I really would have liked the biodiesel tax credit to have to stayed on in our lives. It did sunset at the end of 24. And I think there was a lot of hope towards the beginning of this year that it was going to come back, but I feel as time goes on, it's not looking great. But don't lose hope. It may, who knows what could happen in the years to come. But right now, so that is not in place, although some of you maybe still be buying B99 and B100, which has to do with the tax credit. So what did pass, or what was in the legislation, was the 45Z. And this actually was in legislation before, but they kind of became a little more clear what they were going to do with it. There's still some guidance that is needed, but this is strictly a producer credit. If those of you that have worked with a BTC, you know that it could be passed up and down between the producer and the blender, but this is specifically to the blender or to the producer. The producer gets the credit depending on, really simply, the greener their fuel, the more incentive they have, the more tax credit they receive for it. There's some labor stipulations as well with it, but it is strictly a producer credit. And it just varies what you receive, so how you produce the fuel. And this was extended to 2029. And this is with a growing trend of lots of things in our lives. The feedstocks are limited to, the only producers that can receive this is if you have US, Canadian, Mexican feedstocks only. So no foreign feedstock can apply for this, or foreign fuels can apply for this 45Z credit, which is different than the BTC. So what you may be getting spammed with or saw on your social media is the small refinery exemptions, the SREs, that were announced last Friday. So we've had a huge backlog of these for a long time, all the way back to 2016. And what's happened as of Friday is that, pending lawsuits, of course, but what happened was that they did exempt from 24 back all the way to 2016. They exempted some at 100%, some at 50%. And then they did deny some and told some of the others that they weren't even eligible to apply for the SRE, likely because they made more than the cutoff was. But what happened is that they granted these SREs. But what's happened is that obviously, if you right now only 23s and 24s, 25s are available for market. So 22s and backwards, what they've done is that they're going to just release the RINs back to those small refiners, which doesn't do a lot for them financially, obviously, because if they did comply already, if they submitted their compliance obligation, they did all that, those RINs are not worth anything at this point because they're not a marketable RIN. So hence why I say lawsuits are probably going to be coming forward here. So that's what happened with older SREs. There are 11 pending SREs right now for 25. And so what we're kind of expecting soon, I don't know when the rumor is soon, to find out what the RVOs, renewable fuel volume obligations, are for 26, 27. And that regulation, when that comes out, we'll find out what they're going to do with SREs going forward. So the RVOs that are proposed currently are for 26 and 27. We know what 24 and 25 are. If you're an obligated party on the call right now, and you may also be a blender, 24 is due December 1st of this year. And then 25 is next March. Your audit information, your audits have to be due next June, both 24, 25. So as you can see, everything is climbing upwards for the most part, except for cellulosic. And what happened with 24 is that EPA granted a partial waiver for the cellulosic portion of their obligation. And now obligated parties, they can buy waiver credits to make up for that. So the waiver credit cost is $1.61, which sounds amazing if you're looking at RIN values, thinking 161 sounds great. However, you also have to add on that you will also have to retire the same amount of D4s or D5s with your D3 portion of the obligation. So if you choose the waiver credit, you pay the 161 when you do your compliance, but then you also have to retire those D4s, D5s, the same number as well. So we're waiting for all of this to come out for 26, 27, as to whether, what are the actual finalized volumes. And the other big thing is part of this ruling was, at the proposed ruling, was imported feedstocks. So tracking with everything else that's going on, anything that is so foreign biofuels and foreign feedstocks, what they're proposing is that they would only generate 50% of the RIN value. So right now, when you look at biofuels, biodiesel, you get 1.5 RINs per gallon of biodiesel. If this goes forward, if we were to say this happens tomorrow, then you're looking at 0.75 RINs per gallon. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with this. We're already, have tariffs. We have the 45Z that's saying, no, you don't get a tax credit if you are bringing in imported feedstocks. So this would kind of be another layer that's definitely pushing for domestic production and domestic feedstocks. So maybe it'll all come together. I'm not going to speculate what's going to happen here, but just wanted to make you all aware and kind of cut through the noise of all of the things that are coming at you through EPA and through maybe your X account or LinkedIn. But basically, over the years, we've been importing more renewable diesels come into our world. It's definitely increased over the years. So it'll be interesting to see what happens as this gets finalized, which we're told is soon. So I'm going to hand this over to Benecor here in a second, but just kind of reviewing all the different ways you can do blending, which, the easiest and least amount of equipment you have to use is splash blending, where you are putting bio on top of your diesel and the fuel tanker truck. And it's literally splashing and blending on its way. And that is one method of blending. And then obviously inline is the most sophisticated way that you can do blending. To really be in control of the quality and the percentage, and maybe even turn it off in those winter months if you choose not to do any blending. And then I know Benecor is going to talk a lot about this too, but just wanted to bring it up too about, there's some other ideas out there about, a lot of fleets are looking at potentially doing B100 engines where they're converting their engines to B100. And then there's also been some talk about diesel engines being converted to ethanol. Being able to run on ethanol. So I'm going to pass this off to Benecor, and they're going to talk more about their equipment and some strategies and some thoughts on. They do biofuel ASTs, and they also do DEF equipment. But I'm going to pass this off to Brendan, and you just tell me when you need to change the slides, Brendan.
Thanks, Ginger. Appreciate it very much.
Sure.
Yeah, jump into the first slide there, if you would, Ginger, and
Yep.
we'll get started there.
Okay.
So Benecor is an engineering manufacturing company based out of Fenton, Michigan. We're just in the northwest part of Detroit, founded in 2005. As an organization, we're really structured the business around diesel exhaust fluid. We were the very first company in the industry to really get started in diesel exhaust fluid, laid out the infrastructure for North America with a lot of different strategic partners in the market. So that's really where we kind of got our start. We've been very successful with that particular product line for a long time on, again, engineered, manufactured above ground storage systems for diesel exhaust fluid. Little backdrop. So probably 4 years ago, we were contacted and we got reached out by several companies in the marketplace, fuel producers, some technology companies who had asked us to develop customized AST biodiesel systems that would store 100% biodiesel in any condition in the marketplace. So anything from could be in Florida all the way up into northern Canada, where you would see minus 40-degree temperatures. Can you go down one more, Ginger? Next slide. Yeah. And so Right there's good. So we went ahead and spent probably about a year and a half of development into what would be a product line that we have launched a couple of years ago, and that is full AST systems to support anything from B100 all the way down into blended systems, as we'll kind of go through. We've got some very unique proprietary design systems, and stretching anywhere from 2,000 gallons all the way up to probably 18,000 gallons of capacity. We are, again, a true manufacturer, engineering firm. So a lot of times customers come to us with very specific needs, and we design and engineer around those designs and needs for them. And so they're going to go through, Brad Crawford on the call as well is going to go through more of the systems themselves, but this is just kind of a high level overview of us as an organization. Let's go to the next one, Ginger. We market our products into, I like to tell the marketplace that if you're running a diesel engine, we're probably somehow tied to you. All the emissions control standards that taken place back in 2010, all the way through off-highway marketplace in 2011, marine applications, we're involved in them. We've got systems all over the North American market serving really essentially any type of platforms you can imagine. Some of the areas that we continue to really support and grow with, I mean, look at what's happening out there in the marketplace on data centers, from there all the way to rail, all the way to agriculture. So we're heavily engaged in the diesel engine industry.
What we could talk about is if you are currently blending biofuels, but maybe just recently you've been able to access renewable diesel. I'll bring this question up to you, Brendan. If somebody has been using it for biofuel blending, and they might have an opportunity to switch over to renewable diesel, what would they need to do in that situation if that was something that became available?
Yeah, all of our tank systems are designed to the extreme side. So for us, extreme side is really based around biofuels, right? When we look at compatibility of components, materials, seals, all the things that we work in are cross-compatible backwards to the renewable and diesel side. So we do have a fair amount of customers who at times will need to shift in what they're doing for storage, right? So they may start out at biofuels for a 6-month run, a 9-month run, and then they run into some issues as it relates to getting supply. They maybe have different incentives that come up, and will switch over to a renewable for a short period of time. They may go into a diesel for a short period of time. So our systems allow for that drop-in to happen on a consistent basis if they want to come in and out from a compatibility standpoint.
Gotcha.
Having that flexibility is really good for most customers. Now, they probably don't do that too frequently, but it is available to them. We have, and we'll talk a little bit about our partnership with Optimus. Optimus developed, an incredibly state-of-the-art B100 system to go onto actual semis. And so it allows you to convert from diesel in a short startup function over into a 100% biodiesel on the vehicle. And, one of the things that we've done is we've developed these tanking systems for them to store 100% biodiesel, but actually be at a dispense point in there. So a lot of the customers will take our B100 tanks and they'll use those as above ground storage tanks to process their bio over to another blending, site, or, at least be able to blend with their diesel. But these tanks are all designed, dispensers in place to actually use 100% biodiesel. So very, very unique system that Brad will have a chance to kind of walk into on that.
Currently in the industry out in the field, we have two different systems, B100 commercial fueling systems, as well as some B100, B99 retail fueling systems. The units are completely self-contained, built into an ISO design of the footprint of a shipping container. Units leave our factory fully integrated to a plug-and-play design once they land on site. Power panels, ATGs, overfill alarms, they're insulated, heated, complete heated pump room, inline filtration. and then with a commercial dispenser for the commercial side. And then on the retail side, we have a retail unit with a payment processor option on the outside of the unit. These systems are deployed across the country right now for commercial fleets and retail fleets at Pilot Flying J in 2 locations. Again, Brendan was saying, we designed our systems for the harshest environments out there. We have 2-inch thick rigid metal insulation panels all the way around our tanks with internal immersion heaters in the tank where we can add up to 3 of those depending on the climate, a heated pump room, remote control thermostats, and remote monitoring is available, heated product line, insulated roll-up doors. To date, I believe the coldest one we have is at a negative 10 degrees up in Wisconsin. Units never had a problem gelling in that situation. So the heaters are working. The system is designed for that. We also offer heated hoses and hose kits in case there is a situation where drivers forget to close the doors. The hardware stays warm and doesn't start to gel. As Brendan was saying, we worked with Optimus Technology on our systems to help them bring B100 to their customers. It's been a pretty good process so far. The Vector technology is one of a kind, and customers that are using it love it. And there are more and more over-the-road fleets adding it, looking for more and more locations to offer that B99, B100 fuel at the island. So, like Brendan was saying, we started out in the pure B100 fuel tank design, and over the last several months, went down the road of designing and implementing bio blending options into our tanks and offering our tanks with blenders built in. The reason for that, giving the customer the blending flexibility to go from B0 up to about B45, depending on the products that are the equipment that's being filled and the availability, ability to help the sustainability goals of the customers in the fleet. And then the all-in-one blending system is just convenient, small footprint, and again, you can ramp it up or turn it down anytime you want, depending on the season. So next slide will show you the design of our tank and the rough design of it anyway. It's a 15,000 gallon, 600 gallon tank, completely insulated, built-in electrical panel, built-in tank monitor with the 2-inch insulation. Next slide, please. Then on the front end of the pump room that is heated, we installed a inline blending system where in this situation, you would sit this next to your existing tank farm on a new tank slab, all above ground, of course. You put a transition sump in, pipe into your existing diesel lines, into the blender. At the blending point, the biodiesel in the tank would blend and then retie into the underground piping, feed into dispensers. Quick, easy installation, no disrupting dirt, no environmental concerns. Makes it a little bit easier. Next slide. Just kind of showing you a quick view of our blender. We partnered with a manufacturer on this blender. We did not design this. The reason for that is it's a tried and true product and best in class in the industry. This unit versus some other inline blenders where it's just injecting inline actually has a blending chamber that is taking the product at the warm state and blending it to have a better cohesion throughout and less chance of separation once it gets to the vehicle's tank. Next slide. So then we decided to come up to design the all-in-one unit for the commercial or the retail location that wants off-island bio blending. They don't want to add it to the entire site. This unit is a split 15,600 gallon tank. Can be arranged at any arrangement of size, from a 10,000 gallon diesel to a 5,600 gallon biodiesel. For that blend ratio, has a next slide has a built-in dispenser coming off of that bio blender. Again, all of this is heated. They're with roll-up doors, so kind of eliminates that risk of product gelling while sitting idle in the cold weather. Next slide. And skip that one if you wish. We'll go into the actual device itself. Go ahead to the next slide, maybe. So we partnered with Veeder-Root and TMS to implement their bio blending system into our tank. Again, a tried and true manufacturer in the petroleum industry for decades. Go ahead to the next slide. Veeder-Root itself has been around for over 159 years. Product reliability is the best in the industry, and they have a enormous service group to service this product across the nation. So if there is ever a problem, service is just a phone call away. Next slide. So the Veeder-Root blending system is powered by TMS. So TMS is the brains of the system, controlling the blend valves. The system is 100% stainless, has a very fine tolerance of 0.05 or 0.5 target rate of the adjustments for the blend valves. Again, can go from a B0 to a B45, and it's completely calibratable through the valves on the system to meet weights and measures requirements. Next slide. The system ties in with your existing TLS 450 console with a PMS BBS controller in the back room that is the back office controller for your blend ratios, and allowing you to modify that again from 0 to 45% with a click of a button. It's metering your diesel, it's metering your biofuel, monitoring your blend valves, and then again, it gives back a report of what your blend ratio is at any given time for your reporting requirements for your incentives. Next slide. For the unit to be dropped onto an existing site, if your current site is running, say a 6-inch 5 horsepower big flow motor, and you're looking for 250 gallons a minute of B20, it's a simple add-in of a 4-inch 1.5 motor to our tank, which is standard, and to get that flow rate through the nozzles. This is all adjustable and customizable on how many dispensers and what the flow rate you're looking for. Next slide. So why Benecor, and what are the benefits? Again, like I talked on earlier, ease of installation. Installation of an above ground tank is easier and faster in comparison to an underground tank. Cost of installation is significantly less than an underground tank without the need of excavation to install the tanks, and cost of UST insurance, compliance requirements, etc. Also, at the chance of excavating dirt next to a tank field, you lose the risk of hitting an existing product lines, finding contamination in the soil, so on and so forth. Maintenance and inspection is easier, obviously, on an AST. You can visually inspect everything, and your cost is lower on an annual basis. It's a very small, compact footprint. It's 8 foot wide. By the longest we have is 40 foot. So you're not taking up a lot of real estate. It can be tucked off the backcourt and away from drivers as well. And you have the flexibility to go again, all the way down to 0. But B2 is probably, it could be used year round, all the way up to a B45 where needed. So all I got this. We got Brennan, myself, and Amber with us. And if you need anything, any questions, concerns on the bio systems or our DEF systems, feel free to reach out with any questions. Ginger, I'll turn it back over to you for questions.
So I have a question. I was wondering about energy costs. When you're heating all of this, what would you say is a percentage increase in energy costs have you guys found?
I don't know as much as percentage that we could really, apply here. What I would say is that we have went to a three-phased approach, so a 208 or 240 three-phased approach. So allowing us to have lower amp draw actually on the heating system. So they're very, very efficient heating systems that we put into our systems. We have not gotten any feedback from our customers who have noticed anything that they would equate to as a large increase in cost. But that's due again, making sure that we're running a three-phase system as opposed to a single-phase system.
Gotcha. I know when we were talking, I think just yesterday, we were kind of talking about how some companies and maybe even some producers are kind of looking at new ways to try to capture different kinds of feedstock. And we talked about used cooking oil, that, maybe this is kind of like a new cycle or a different way of looking at how we could capture feedstock or be a part of the circle of life of a feedstock that I think you brought up an article that maybe used cooking oil was being captured from a C-store and being picked up by the producer and then perhaps selling that fuel back to that C-store, the
Correct.
biofuel.
Correct. The company is using second, lost it there for a second. But they're working with, for instance, Sheets. It's Restaurant Technologies. They're an oil provider and oil recycler. So they're providing the C-store the sheets with the oil. Sheets is then using that oil, filtering it, using it up until it's done, putting it back into a used oil hopper. Your Restaurant Technologies is picking that up, taking that to Chevron, REG, to then refine into biofuel and then return it back to Sheets as they interject or start introducing B20 at their truck lanes. So, kind of the circle of life. They're not wasting anything, not just selling that used oil off to a recycler. They're just, it's good technology, and it's honestly saving them a little bit of money on the oil up front in recycling costs.
Okay. When somebody's considering putting in this AST, what are some of the things that they're looking at? I know you need to make sure you have the space, obviously, and is there any sort of like traffic studies done or anything to figure out where the best spot is, or really kind of depends on how close it is to dispensers? How do you help determine some of that?
So most of our tanks that we're putting out today are UL 2085 tanks. So the requirements for restrictions on placement on the land, away from the property line, away from buildings are limited. Putting it near the existing fuel pad for if you're doing blending is obviously the best place. Shorter piping changes underground. Your tanker trucks are already going to be in the general vicinity. The requirements, you're looking at a concrete pad with footers on it, which depending on the ground compaction underneath, depending on that is how thick that has to be and how large that has to be. But, it's a reasonable, it's about a 12-inch pad on the edges with an 8-inch filler pad in the middle. So it's really not a lot of concrete in comparison to what you would spend for a UST for backfill and concrete on top of that. And then, as a placement, a lot of it depends on the customer. Another big benefit with the AST is out in California. It erases some of the environmental requirements that are there as well when they have AST tanks on the underground equipment as well for the piping. So, a lot of different variables there.
Yeah, I think I'd just add to that, Brad, it's, you know, what we have repeatedly seen over and over from our commercial customers is that underground storage any longer is just not an option. I mean, the requirements they have from their insurance providers in the marketplace, the local municipalities, the state municipalities, the fire regulations. When we look at and we talk to commercial customers, they want 2085 fire guard tanks above ground. I'm you know, Brad and I have been around for a while doing this, and I can tell you, you just aren't seeing it. You're not getting customers in the commercial space to go underground. So it's a change that's been happening over the last probably 10 years, and it's just accelerating. Keep that in mind as well. These systems allow you to go ahead and create a drop-in solution against the backdrop of not being able to put underground storage tanks in.
Thank you. I actually had the privilege of seeing one up close. There was a ribbon cutting at a pilot here in Des Moines area that I got to see a Benecor tank for the first time, AST and Optimus Technologies with PepsiCo nearby. So it was really interesting to see, you know, it really didn't, of course it takes up space, but it doesn't stick out like you maybe you're thinking in your head, but it was a really cool system, and to be able to see that this can happen in Iowa where we have pretty cold winters. And I know you guys were talking about you know, working for some of your clients are north. How far north have you guys gone?
Well, you know, in our DEF space, we go all the way up into the North Slope of Alaska. We've been up into, you know, the tar sands of, Canada. So we've done a lot of large scale systems so that's really, again, backdrop into us. That's where, you know, we've engineered so much of our knowledge on heating, insulation into above ground storage tanks. That's where it's been. So that's kind of where we're at there. And so we're dealing with -40, -50 degree temperatures in that particular product line. And then again, as Brad said, we're seeing marketplaces that are in the most northern part of the US. Canada is still, we have not put product into Canada yet on the B100 side or the biodiesel side, but certainly looking to change that as well.
Nice. I know some of my clients they don't want to blend in the wintertime at all. So they could switch this tank over to maybe not use it at all, or they may be switching it over to diesel, which is an option.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Our tanks are designed to meet all of the classifications for diesel fuel storage, which is more stringent than biodiesel, of course. So
Right.
you know, definitely can switch backwards.
If you did switch back to diesel, would you have to have an SPCC plan for this? Or maybe
More than
you don't
likely,
know.
yes, for
Yeah.
per your local requirements, yeah, for
Right.
spill response. But this unit does meet all, you know, AST requirements for spill containment, and it's a double wall monitored system as well. So
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I'm going to share your guys' information again, just so everybody has it. And appreciate everybody having their patience on this webinar that we lost touch there for a minute. So Benecor can help you figure out whether there's a biofuel blending opportunity at your locations that could benefit from blending, making it easy. And like I said earlier, it might be a good time to look at the economics again. Take a look at everything. Go to the NATSO Outfuels website, check out our blending calculator. If you need some of the inputs, you can contact me. Maybe you need to look at different supply, maybe a different fuel. But it's definitely worth the time to take a look again to see, is this a good time again to look into blending or blending more? And hopefully we cut through all the noise of what's going on legislatively and be on the lookout for when these RVOs for 26-27 get announced. If you need any help with RINs, with figuring out your obligation, if you have an obligation, we have tools for that too. Any compliance questions, just reach out to me. This is Ginger. And the phone number is 515-988-1626. Or you can email me or check out our website. So we appreciate your time and patience, and thank you very much. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thank you all.